It was the kind of diner you'd miss if you weren't looking for it, tucked away on a dusty road just outside Amarillo, Texas. Its neon sign flickered weakly against the late afternoon sky. Inside, the smell of frying bacon mingled with the faint sweetness of maple syrup, while the low hum of conversation filled the room. It wasn't fancy, but it was a sanctuary for weary travelers and locals alike. Elon Musk pulled his electric truck into the lot. Stepping out in his usual understated way, jeans, a Tesla t-shirt, and a MAGA hat perched casually on his head. The hat wasn't a political statement for him, not really. It had been a gift from a conference, one that had been sitting in his truck ever since. Today, it simply shielded his face from the blazing Texas sun. He slid into a corner booth, his back to the wall, and ordered coffee and waffles from a waitress who looked like she'd seen 1,000 faces just like his. Elon wasn't looking for attention. If anything, he was enjoying the anonymity of a quiet afternoon, far from Silicon Valley's endless noise. The bell over the door jingled. 6 bikers strode in, clad in leather jackets with patches that spoke of countless miles traveled. Their boots struck the tile floor with authority. Their laughter was loud, unfiltered, and confident, the kind of confidence that came from living life on their own terms. Most people stole a glance, then quickly returned to their plates. Elon didn't. He caught the eye of a broad-shouldered man with a grizzled beard, his jacket bearing the nickname Bull. Bull's laughter stopped mid-sentence as his gaze zeroed in on Elon's hat. The easy grin on his face twisted into something harder, more calculating. "Looks like someone wandered a bit too far from Hollywood," Bull said, his voice cutting through the diner like a blade. His buddies chuckled, but their eyes stayed watchful. The waitress froze mid-step, her face tight with unease. Elon looked up from his coffee, his expression calm but curious. "Hollywood?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. "Not quite." Bull's boots thudded against the floor as he approached. The diner seemed to shrink with each step. "You sure about that?" Bull said, his voice low but charged. "Because that hat you're wearing, it's a statement." Elon set his cup down slowly, his eyes never leaving Bull's. "Sometimes a hat is just a hat," he said evenly. The room went silent. Every eye was on them now. The tension in the diner was thick enough to cut with a knife. Bull leaned in closer, his broad frame casting a shadow over the booth. "A hat like that doesn't walk into places like this without a reason," he said, his voice gravelly and deliberate. The other bikers, still hovering near the counter, exchanged smirks, their leather creaking as they shifted. One muttered something under his breath, prompting a low rumble of laughter from the group. Elon didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned back, his fingers resting lightly on his coffee cup. His calm demeanor only seemed to stoke Bull's irritation. "It's interesting," Elon said, his tone measured. "How a piece of fabric can carry so much weight. You're reading a lot into it. Why is that?" Bull blinked, momentarily thrown by the unexpected response. "Because it stands for something," he shot back. "People wear it to show which side they're on." His voice grew sharper. "So which side are you on, Mr. Big Shot?" Elon glanced around the diner. The waitress had disappeared into the kitchen. Other patrons froze in place, eyes darting between the two men. A man at the counter pushed his plate aside, muttering, "This is why I don't stop at places like this anymore." Elon sighed. He turned back to Bull, his face unreadable. "Do you really want to have this conversation here?" he asked, motioning subtly to the wide-eyed diners. Bull squared his shoulders, his jaw tightening. "Why not?" he said. "People like you don't come out here unless you're trying to stir the pot." Elon's lips curled slightly, not quite a smile, but not an insult either. "I come here because I like waffles," he said, raising his coffee. Bull's expression flickered. Then, unexpectedly, he chuckled. The bikers at the counter exchanged glances. Bull exhaled, shaking his head. "You know what? That's probably the best answer I've heard all week," he muttered. The room exhaled. Laughter, real, relieved laughter, rippled through the diner. Even the waitress peeked out from the kitchen. Bull stepped back, giving Elon a nod of respect. "Enjoy your waffles, Hollywood," he said, turning back toward his friends. Elon lifted his cup. "Will do." As the bikers settled into their seats, the diner returned to normal. Elon took a sip of his coffee, his face unreadable. The hat sat firmly on his head, unchanged. Because sometimes a hat is just a hat, and sometimes it's something more. But that, as Elon knew, depended entirely on who was looking at it. If this story made you think, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more eye-opening moments like this. Elon chuckled softly. I came for waffles, he said, taking another bite. They're good, by the way. You should try them. The unexpected remark caught Bull off guard, pulling a snicker from one of the bikers at the counter. Bull's glare shot toward the laughter, silencing it instantly. Then he turned back to Elon, his expression hardening. You think this is funny? He asked. No, Elon said, his voice steady, but I think misunderstandings usually are. Bull tilted his head, his brows furrowing. What's there to misunderstand? That hat speaks loud enough. Elon paused, letting the weight of Bull's words settle in the air. Then he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. Maybe we should talk about what it says to you, he suggested, because that seems to matter a lot right now. The room held its breath, waiting for Bull's response. Even his companions, usually quick to back him up, seemed curious about where this was going. The tension remained, but something shifted. There was a flicker of something else, intrigue. Bull's jaw tightened as he considered Elon's words. His buddies at the counter exchanged wary glances, sensing that the dynamic was changing. The atmosphere in the diner hadn't eased, but it had become something else, less predictable. A quiet pull toward whatever was unfolding at that booth. You want to know what it says to me? Bull finally asked, his voice low but heavy with experience. He leaned forward, one hand on the table, the leather of his jacket creaking as he shifted. It says you're either clueless or you're looking for a fight, he said. Out here, that hat's got a history. People wear it to make a statement, one that doesn't sit right with everyone. Elon didn't answer immediately. He took a slow sip of his coffee, his gaze never leaving Bull's. When he finally spoke, his tone was calm but firm. That's fair, he said. But isn't it worth asking why someone like me might wear it? Or are you more interested in making assumptions? Bull straightened up, his eyes narrowing. All right then, he said, crossing his arms. Why are you wearing it? Elon set his coffee cup down, his fingers brushing the brim of the hat. Because it was a gift, he said simply. Bull's brow furrowed. I don't wear it to take sides, Elon continued. I wear it because it reminds me of the person who gave it to me, a retired engineer who spent his life solving problems most people didn't even know existed. The diner was completely silent now. We had a great conversation, Elon went on, his voice measured, about hard work, innovation, and what it means to leave something better than you found it. The honesty in his voice cut through the room like a blade. Even Bull's hardened expression softened, if only slightly. That's different, Bull admitted after a long pause, but you gotta know how it looks to folks out here. Absolutely, Elon said, and I respect that. But maybe, instead of judging someone by what they wear, we could talk about what we actually stand for, what really matters. Bull didn't answer right away. The other bikers shifted uncomfortably, clearly unused to seeing their leader challenged. Finally, one of them, a wiry man with a scar running down his cheek, spoke up. All right, genius, he said, his voice skeptical. What is it you stand for? Elon glanced around the room, letting his gaze land briefly on each face before returning to Bull. I stand for moving forward, he said, for finding common ground, even when it feels impossible, and for believing that, no matter how divided we seem, there's always a way to connect. The room fell silent again, but this time the weight was different. The tension had shifted from confrontation to something else, a collective curiosity. Bull's lips pressed into a thin line. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right, he said, his voice gruff but less hostile. You've got my attention, so what's your idea of moving forward? Elon leaned in slightly, his hands clasped on the table. The air was thick with anticipation. Moving forward, he began, starts with conversations like this one. People don't always see eye to eye, but most of the time, that's because they've never really tried to understand each other. Bull cocked his head, his arms still crossed. Sounds like a fancy way of saying, let's all get along, he said. Elon smiled, a real one this time. Not exactly, he said. It means we don't have to agree on everything, but if we start by listening, maybe we'll realize we're not as different as we think. For the first time that evening, Bull laughed, a deep, genuine chuckle. I'll give you this, Musk, he said. You know how to talk. The diner exhaled, Laughter and conversation slowly returned. The waitress, who had been hovering near the kitchen, finally relaxed. Bull took a step back, nodding at Elon. "Enjoy your waffles," he said. Elon lifted his coffee. "Will do." As the bikers returned to their seats, the tension officially dissolved. Because sometimes a conversation is all it takes to change the entire direction of a moment. If this story made you think, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that challenge perspectives. "The world doesn't work like that," Bull muttered, his voice gruff with skepticism. Elon shook his head. "No, it doesn't," he admitted. "But it also doesn't work when people assume the worst about each other without asking questions. Take us, for example. You saw this hat and made a judgment. I get it. Where I'm from, people make judgments too. But imagine how different things might be if we started by asking why instead of assuming we already know." Bull's brow furrowed. For a moment, he seemed to wrestle with the idea. One of his crew, the wiry man with the scar, spoke up again. "All right, Elon, since we're asking questions, why'd you really come here? A guy like you doesn't just wander into a hole-in-the-wall diner in the middle of Texas for waffles." Elon smirked. "Believe it or not, I'm working, scouting locations for a project. I like to see things for myself, talk to people, get a feel for the area. You'd be surprised how much you can learn just by listening." The man with the scar let out a short laugh. "Listening, huh? You're talking to the wrong crowd for that. We're more about action." "Action's good," Elon replied, his tone easy. "But it's better when it's informed. That's why I build things, to solve problems, to create something that makes life better for as many people as possible. And that includes folks like you." Bull's eyes narrowed. "Folks like us?" Elon nodded. "People who know what it means to work hard, to build something with their own two hands. You think Tesla or SpaceX came out of nowhere? They're built on the same principles you live by: grit, determination, and refusing to give up when things get tough." The room seemed to hold its breath. The bikers, who just minutes ago had been sizing Elon up as a target, now looked more curious than confrontational. Even Bull's posture had relaxed slightly. "So what's your angle?" Bull asked, folding his arms. "You trying to win us over with some fancy words and big ideas?" "No angle," Elon said simply. "Just a conversation. But if you're interested, I've got something to show you, something that might change the way you think about what's possible." Bull raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah? What's that?" Elon stood, tossing a few bills on the table to cover his meal. "How about a tour? I've got a Tesla facility not far from here. Come see what we're building and what it could mean for you." The bikers exchanged skeptical glances, but there was a flicker of intrigue in their expressions. Bull stared at Elon for a long moment before finally shrugging. "Why the hell not?" he said. "But if this is some kind of sales pitch, we're out." "No sales pitch," Elon said with a small smile. "Just an invitation." The group followed Elon out into the parking lot, their boots crunching against the gravel. A few of them exchanged quiet comments, still unsure what to make of the situation. Bull walked at the front, his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets, his sharp eyes studying Elon as if trying to figure out his true intentions. Parked near the edge of the lot was Elon's Cybertruck, its angular design looking almost alien against the backdrop of rusting pickup trucks and weathered sedans. One of the bikers, a younger guy with a red bandana tied around his head, let out a low whistle. "That yours?" he asked, nodding toward the truck. "Sure is," Elon replied, pulling a key card from his pocket. With a single swipe, the door handles popped out and the headlights blinked to life. "Hop in. It's not far." The bikers hesitated, clearly unused to taking rides in something so unconventional. "All of us?" one asked, eyeing the truck's spacious cab. Elon chuckled. "It'll be tight, but you'll fit." Bull crossed his arms, his eyes narrowing. "We're not piling into that thing until you tell us what we're getting into." Elon leaned against the truck, his arms casually folded. "What you're getting into," he said, "is a chance to see something different. To understand that innovation isn't about tearing people apart, it's about finding new ways to bring them together. You might not trust me yet, but I think you'll trust what I'm about to show you." Bull studied him for a long moment. Finally, he nodded toward his crew. "All right," he said. "Let's see what this guy's got." The group climbed into the truck, the leather of their jackets squeaking against the futuristic seats. As Elon drove, he started talking, not in the slick, rehearsed way of a salesman, but in a straightforward, almost conversational tone. You know, he said, the biggest challenge isn't technology, it's trust. Bull, arms still crossed, glanced over. Trust? Elon nodded. People get set in their ways. They hear the word change and it feels like a threat, but real progress doesn't mean losing what matters, it means building on what already does. The bikers listened, some nodding slightly, others still wary but engaged. As the Tesla facility came into view, its sleek, modern structure standing stark against the Texas landscape, Elon slowed the truck. Here we are, he said. Let's talk about what's possible. Bull stared at the facility, his jaw tight. And you think this means something to us? Elon turned to him, his expression serious. I think if you give it a chance, it just might. The bikers exchanged glances. The conversation wasn't over. In fact, it was just getting started. In a world full of divisions, sometimes all it takes is one conversation to start changing perspectives. Bull had walked into that diner ready to judge. He left ready to think. And in the end, that's how progress begins. If this story made you think, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that challenge perspectives. A lot of people think Tesla is just for rich folks, Elon said, his hands resting lightly on the steering wheel. Fancy cars, big price tags. But the truth is, what we're working on isn't just about cars. It's about changing the way we think, about energy, transportation, and what's possible for everyone. The bikers sat in silence, listening. The hum of the Cybertruck's engine was barely audible as they sped down the highway. Outside, the dusty Texas plains slowly gave way to something more striking, the sleek, modern silhouette of a Tesla facility rising on the horizon. When they arrived, Elon pulled up near the entrance and hopped out. He gestured toward the massive building. This, he said, his voice brimming with excitement, is where the magic happens. The bikers stepped out of the Cybertruck, their boots hitting the pristine concrete of the parking lot. They exchanged uneasy glances, clearly out of their element. The building loomed ahead, a futuristic structure of glass and steel shimmering under the late afternoon sun. Bull took the lead, his expression unreadable. Elon swiped a keycard at the entrance, and the glass doors slid open with a soft whoosh. Inside, the contrast was stark. The air was cool and crisp, the faint hum of high-tech machinery buzzing all around them. Employees moved with purpose, and large screens displayed real-time production metrics. Sleek robotic arms worked alongside people on the assembly lines, piecing together vehicles with incredible precision. Welcome to the future, Elon said, spreading his arms. This is where we're building electric vehicles, energy storage systems, and the kind of technology that could change how we live, if we let it. The bikers hesitated near the entrance, some shifting on their feet. It was the youngest of the group, the one with the red bandana, who finally broke the silence. This is wild, he muttered, his eyes wide as he watched a robotic arm seamlessly weld a car chassis together. Elon grinned. It's something, isn't it? Come on, let me show you around. As they moved through the facility, Elon explained each section with enthusiasm, his passion for innovation unmistakable. He led them through the battery assembly line, where sleek modules were crafted with incredible precision. He pointed out solar panels being tested for durability, explaining how they could provide energy to off-grid communities. At one station, a team of engineers worked on a prototype for a more affordable electric car. This isn't about making toys for billionaires, Elon said, his voice rising slightly to carry over the hum of machinery. It's about solving real problems, problems that affect all of us. Climate change doesn't care how much money you have, where you're from, or what you believe. We all have a stake in finding solutions. Bull, who had been silent for most of the tour, finally spoke. You really believe all this can make a difference? He asked, arms crossed. Elon turned to face him directly. I do, he said without hesitation. But it's not just about technology. It's about people. People willing to think differently, imagine a better future, and work together to make it happen. Bull nodded slowly, his gaze drifting over the assembly line. It's impressive, I'll give you that. But how does any of this help someone like me? Someone who's spent their life fixing old machines, not building new ones. Elon didn't miss a beat. It helps because it shows what's possible. He paused, letting the words sink in. It's easy to get stuck in the way things have always been, but when you see something like this, when you see that change is possible, it opens your mind to what you could do too. The bikers were quiet as they continued the tour. Their earlier skepticism was fading, replaced by a mix of fascination and reflection. Even Bull, the grizzled leader who had confronted Elon so fiercely at the diner, seemed to be rethinking things. As they returned to the entrance, Elon stopped and turned to face the group. "Look," he said, "I'm not saying this place will solve every problem, but it's a start. And if you're ever curious, if you ever want to see what else is out there, you're always welcome here." For a moment, no one spoke. Then, Bull stepped forward. His expression was hard to read, but after a brief hesitation, he extended a hand. "You're an odd guy, Musk," he said, a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "But I respect what you're doing." Elon shook his hand, his grip firm but friendly. "Respect goes both ways," he replied. The rest of the bikers nodded in agreement. Whatever skepticism they had when they walked in had shifted, maybe not into full belief, but into something close to understanding. As they stepped back out into the warm Texas evening, Bull turned one last time. "You know, Musk," he said, "I never thought I'd be interested in something like this." Elon chuckled. "That's the thing about the future. You never know where it'll take you." The rumble of motorcycles filled the parking lot as the bikers climbed onto their bikes. This wasn't just a tour. It was a moment of change. As Elon watched them ride off into the sunset, he knew one thing for certain. Sometimes, the biggest innovations don't happen in labs or factories. They happen in conversations. In a world full of assumptions and divisions, sometimes all it takes is one conversation to challenge perspectives. Bull and his crew walked into that Tesla facility with doubt. They walked out with something new. Not just an understanding of the technology, but an understanding of the mindset behind it. Change starts with listening. And in that moment, that's exactly what happened. Elon shook Bull's hand firmly. "Thanks, Bull. I respect what you're doing too. And for what it's worth, those waffles really were great." The bikers laughed, the lingering tension finally breaking. They climbed back into the Cybertruck, their ride back filled with conversation, not just about Tesla's technology, but about what it all meant. When they pulled into the diner's dusty parking lot, the bikers stepped out, quieter now than before. Something about their visit to the Tesla facility had shifted their perspectives. The world beyond the futuristic factory seemed smaller, less expansive, almost as if they had stepped back in time. They stood in a loose circle by their bikes, each lost in thought. Even Bull, who had led the conversation earlier, seemed uncharacteristically reflective. Elon stepped out last, leaning casually against the Cybertruck. "I've been to a lot of places," he said, breaking the silence. "Met a lot of people, but today was different. You reminded me why it's important to have these conversations, not just about technology, but about where we're headed as a society." Bull glanced up, his expression unreadable. "You talk a good game, Musk," he admitted. "But I'll give you this. You made me think. And that doesn't happen often." Elon chuckled. "Thinking's the first step. Action comes next." The youngest biker, the one with the red bandana, spoke up. "Do you really think all this tech stuff can fix the world? Like, for real?" Elon's expression grew serious. "Technology is just a tool," he said. "It's not about machines or gadgets. It's about how we use them. We can build walls, or we can build bridges. The choice is always ours." A quiet contemplation settled over the group. Finally, Bull stepped forward and extended his hand. "You're all right, Musk," he said gruffly. "We don't agree on everything, but I respect you for putting your money where your mouth is." Elon shook his hand again. "And I respect you for listening. That's the hardest part." The bikers mounted their motorcycles, the roar of engines breaking the stillness. One by one, they pulled away. Bull was the last to leave. He gave Elon a brief nod, revved his engine, and disappeared down the road. Elon stood by his Cybertruck, watching them go. It wasn't every day that worlds collided so unexpectedly, but when they did, it reminded him why he did what he did. Progress wasn't just about building machines or sending rockets into space. It was about connecting people, even in the most unlikely places. He slid into the driver's seat, the truck humming to life as he stared at the horizon for a moment. Then he drove off, leaving the diner behind, but carrying the day's lessons forward.